Hi, how you doing and welcome back to a video on the channel. What we have for you today is our preview video going into Game Week 34, but it's not just any preview video because I do have my free hit chip active. So the team we're talking about today is my actual free hit team that I've got for Game Week 34. So if you are new to the channel, please do like and subscribe. The support is always appreciated. Please do comment on the videos as well if you've got any thoughts or questions of your own. Always good to hear from other managers. Let's take a look at Game Week 33. So overall, Game Week 33, it was pretty good, but that's really down to a few players. On the whole, the defence offered nothing. The transfers we did make, one of them was Rico Lewis, who came in. Unfortunate not to get a clean sheet. I do think if Man City can't keep a clean sheet against someone like Luton, they're probably never going to keep a clean sheet for the rest of the season. I did also bring in Luis Diaz, who actually wasn't discussed on the video preview last week. We talked about swapping Watkins out, but I just couldn't bring myself to take Watkins out. He's been such a good player all season, and he did score against Arsenal, and Foden didn't play at all. So Diaz came in, and whilst he only got 2 points, it's 2 more points than I would have had from Foden. I actually think I might go and get a Bournemouth shirt with Cliver on the back because at 4.6 million, the last 3 weeks he's got 2 goals and an assist. And I think he's averaging like less than a half a game, something like 40 minutes a game in the last 3 games, and he's getting me those returns. And every week he's come off the bench and provided an attacking return. So he's absolutely brilliant from Cliver. And we got to talk about Cole Palmer, haven't we? 4 goals in Chelsea's game. It's one of those ones where you think, oh, if only I'd captained him. If only I'd captained him. And he actually was talked about for captaincy. And I'm sure some people did captain him. If that's you, fair play, because I captained Haaland and I was pretty happy with it because for me it was a toss up between Salah and Haaland. I was never really going to captain Palmer ahead of those two. So whilst it would have been great in hindsight to captain a midfielder who's got 4 goals and a clean sheet, but it was never going to really work for me. So we did have, I'll say, a great arrow. I think we went down about 500 places, so we're essentially the same rank. And a few weeks ago, I was desperate to get to Game Week 34 because I knew I was free hitting, and then I'm going to use my wildcard in 35. So now it's kind of like a blank slate with a few game weeks to go in the season. Hopefully, I can push into that top 10k. I think that's a realistic target now, but it's going to be really tough. And a game week like this is going to count a lot if I'm going to do that. So the fixtures for this game week are pretty hectic. So much so that we couldn't even fit them all on the same screen at the same time. We've got that one on the side. I think if you were captaining someone, you probably got to captain someone with a double game week. That really speaks to Liverpool players or Arsenal players. I think if you're going to captain anyone out of those two teams, it's kind of got to be Salah. I know he's not on the best of form, but Liverpool are still creating chances. If you didn't want to captain Salah, or maybe, I'm sure you will have Liverpool players, but if you didn't have any Liverpool players and you want to pick from Arsenal, I wouldn't be a million miles away from saying captain Havertz. I think to be safe, I'd probably have captained Saka this game week, but I really do think it's Salah or nobody. I think Salah is that much more obvious, even just if it's because of fear of missing out, and he has got that like high ownership that you're thinking, oh, if I don't captain him and it backfires, it's kind of going to derail my whole season. So whilst it might look like the safe option, it's probably also the best option. So here we are, my team for this game week. And the keepers, I'm sticking with Henderson and Ortega. We did talk about a free hit team in a video last week. There are quite a few changes to it this week. I just think Crystal Palace with those 2 home games, Henderson is a really good option. He's making good saves as well at the moment and playing really well. And Palace are looking solid in addition to that. Ortega, I'll be honest with you, I tried to keep the bench as thinly spread as possible in terms of price, so no expense spent on the bench because I just feel like the odds of Henderson missing both games is really unlikely, and I'm not going to need my bench much this week. Into defence we go, and as you can see by the subs, there's not much there to talk about, but I have gone with Trent here. I've still got Gabriel as I've had for most of the season, and I've gone with Kilman as well. So this free hit, I think is really about having a big upside. So there's a lot of risks here. And whether I get to the deadline and say, oh yeah, I'll stick with this team, I'm not saying this team is set in stone, but this is what I'm going with at the moment. I think for me, Wolves with the 2 home fixtures as well is just a really good game week. Like, you talk about Arsenal at home is not a good fixture, but we did think before, like, it's unlikely that all the top 3 teams are going to keep winning. There is a little bit of a chance that Arsenal implode a bit. And I think if they do lose against Wolves, you want to almost have a bit of an insurance policy as well. So you're kind of hedging your bets by having one of each. For me, Trent, I know there's not loads of chance that he'll start both, but he could also start both. And Fulham and Everton are not great at the moment and they're not scoring goals. So he very realistically could keep 2 clean sheets and maybe an attacking return. And I know this is maybe me just sort of wishful thinking. In my head, I'm like, oh, this free hit team's going to get over 100 points. It might not. It might backfire, but that's just how I'm leaning at the moment. So into midfield, we've got double Arsenal and double Liverpool. I feel like those players sort of speak for themselves. I think the main talking point here is that I've got a Sheffield United player in my free hit team. And the main reason for that is because I do want some differentials in there. I think Ben Brereton Diaz is capable of scoring goals for Sheffield United. And Sheffield United, apart from the last game against Brentford, they have actually been scoring 2 goals a game, I think, for the last 3 or 4 games before this game week. So there are attacking returns to be had for Sheffield. I think the main reason that I'm picking him is because he's getting 90 minutes and the Burnley home game and Man United away game, it's not the most difficult game week. Both defences, I think, are ranked in the bottom 5 in the whole league. He's involved in a lot of attacking threats for Sheffield United, and he's just someone who I'm thinking I could really sort of make up some points with by throwing him in there. Now, I do have about 4 million, I think, to spend in the bank still, so there is an absolute chance that I'd just bottle it and bring in someone a bit more expensive and a bit more of a sure thing. But at this stage of the season, we'd have said Arsenal, Liverpool last game week are a sure thing and nobody returned for them. So, it is good to kind of just spread it about a little bit whilst also having triple Arsenal, triple Liverpool. So up front, I've gone with Matthias Cunha and I've still got Ollie Watkins, even though I could have him next game week. That Bournemouth at home just looks a really good fixture. Matthias Cunha, a bit like talking about Kilman, that Arsenal game, we don't really know how Arsenal's defence is going to go. And Bournemouth, I think they're good home games. I've got Alexander Isak on the bench. I could have really anyone apart from Haaland. I think for me, Haaland is just out of reach in terms of price, which I would have had him in if I could afford him. Couldn't do it, just a little bit off, and that means I've got quite a lot still to spend. So we'll take a look at the Champions League games, we'll take a look at the Europa League games and so on. And it's good to know that I have got a bit of money to play with if there are any injuries, or let's say Trent doesn't play at all in Europa League, in which case I probably won't risk it. But let me know what you think about my team. Let me know what you think about anyone that I've missed out, anyone that I shouldn't have got in, and if there's any replacements. And if you're having a free hit, what does your team look like as well? So thank you very much for listening. Good luck in this game week. It's exciting game week when you got the chips active, and I will see you in the next one.